Generally speaking, telephone, data, television, and speaker cables can indeed be installed in Schedule 40 polyvinyl chloride, or PVC conduit within a place of assembly. To understand why, let's delve into the National Electrical Code, or NEC. NEC Section 800.110 dictates that raceways for communication circuits, governed by Sections 800.110 through 800.144, are permitted to be installed in any raceway that is allowed in Chapter 3 of the NEC. Now, let's consider NEC Section 352.12f. This section addresses the permitted uses of rigid non-metallic conduit, or RNC. It specifically prohibits the use of RNC for circuits other than Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 signaling and power-limited circuits when installed in cable trays or other raceways. Here's the critical point. While Section 352.12f restricts the use of RNC for certain circuit types, it explicitly permits its use for Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 signaling and power-limited circuits. Telephone, data, television, and speaker cables typically fall under these categories. Therefore, the key lies in understanding the type of circuits involved. As long as the communication cables you're dealing with are Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 signaling and power-limited circuits, Schedule 40 PVC conduit is generally an acceptable raceway. It's important to remember that even if the type of cable is acceptable, the installation must comply with all other relevant NEC requirements. This includes proper installation and support of the conduit. The reason for these regulations is to ensure safety and prevent potential hazards. Using the correct type of conduit and installing it properly helps protect the cables from physical damage, moisture, and other environmental factors. This, in turn, reduces the risk of electrical shorts, fires, and other safety issues. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local building codes for the most up-to-date requirements. It is also recommended to consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer if you have any doubts or questions about the proper installation of electrical systems. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always best to err on the side of caution. Firstly, the National Electrical Code is not law unless a local jurisdiction adopts it as such. Secondly, the NEC is updated every 3 years. It is important to make sure you are using the latest version that your local jurisdiction has adopted. Thirdly, while the NEC provides guidance on electrical installations, it is not a substitute for proper training and experience. If you are not a qualified electrician, you should not attempt to perform electrical work. Fourthly, there are other codes that are not electrical that relate to communications cables like building and fire codes. Be sure to consult these codes as well to be compliant with all applicable codes. Fifthly, even if something is allowed, it may not be advisable. For example, some jurisdictions may not allow PVC conduit at all inside of an assembly occupancy or building for fire reasons, or may require it to be installed in a specific manner that adds to the cost of the installation. Sixthly, other sections of the code may apply to the installation based on the specifics of the project, like Article 725 for Class 2 and 3 circuits, or Article 760 for fire alarm circuits. Therefore, it is imperative to understand the entire scope of the project. Seventhly, specific listing requirements for the type of cable must be followed. For example, the specific cable must be rated for the type of occupancy and installation method. This can affect the overall cost and scope of the project. Eighthly, specific installation requirements may be applicable to the project, such as support requirements, separation requirements, and protection from physical damage. Ninthly, local codes may amend the NEC, such as requiring a permit, specific inspections, or specific methods. Tenthly, even if the project complies with all codes and standards, the authority having jurisdiction may reject the installation if they deem it unsafe or not in accordance with the intent of the code. This is why it is important to consult with the authority having jurisdiction early in the project to ensure that the project will be approved. To recap, NEC Section 800.110 permits communication circuits to be installed in any raceway allowed in Chapter 3 of the NEC. NEC Section 352.12f allows rigid non-metallic conduit for Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 signaling and power limited circuits. Telephone, data, television, and speaker cables typically fall under these categories. Therefore, as long as the raceway is properly installed and supported, it is permissible to install communication cables in Schedule 40 PVC in the place of assembly. It is important to note that this information is for educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional advice. Always consult with a qualified electrician or electrical engineer before performing any electrical work. The term place of assembly refers to a building or portion of a building used for the gathering together of 50 or more persons for deliberation, worship, entertainment, eating, drinking, or similar purposes. Examples include theaters, restaurants, and schools. The NEC contains specific requirements for electrical installations in places of assembly to ensure the safety of occupants. These requirements address issues such as emergency lighting, fire alarm systems, and wiring methods. The type of conduit used for electrical installations in places of assembly is subject to these requirements. Schedule 40 PVC conduit is a type of plastic conduit commonly used for electrical installations. It is lightweight, inexpensive, and resistant to corrosion. However, it is not as strong as metal conduit and may not be suitable for all applications. The NEC specifies the conditions under which Schedule 40 PVC conduit can be used for electrical installations in places of assembly. These conditions relate to the type of circuits being installed, the location of the conduit, and the support and protection provided for the conduit. The use of Schedule 40 PVC conduit for communication cables in places of assembly is generally permitted, as long as the cables are Class 1, Class 2, or Class 3 signaling and power limited circuits and the conduit is installed in accordance with the NEC. However, it's important to consult the NEC and local building codes for the specific requirements in your jurisdiction. In addition to the NEC, other codes and standards may apply to electrical installations in places of assembly. These include the International Building Code, the International Fire Code, and the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is important to be familiar with all applicable codes and standards before performing any electrical work. Always consult with a qualified professional if you have any questions or concerns about electrical installations in places of assembly. Proper electrical installation is critical for the safety of occupants and the prevention of fire and other hazards. Using the correct materials and methods is essential for ensuring a safe and reliable electrical system. By following the NEC and other applicable codes and standards, you can help to create a safe and functional environment for people to gather and enjoy themselves. Remember that electrical codes are constantly evolving to reflect new technologies and safety concerns. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes to the NEC and other applicable codes and standards. Continuing education and professional development are essential for electricians and other electrical professionals. By investing in your knowledge and skills, you can ensure that you are providing the highest level of service to your clients and helping to protect the public from electrical hazards.